Hello and welcome to the Marketing Trail Guide podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Krushevich, founder of Marketing Trail Guide and fractional chief marketing officer for companies running on the Entrepreneurial Operating System, or EOS. In this first season, Opportunities in Crisis, I've been talking with business leaders and entrepreneurs about how to survive and thrive in times of uncertainty. This is episode 12, Can Restaurants Survive a Pandemic? With Jorge Pacheco. Originally from Colombia, Jorge is now the owner of Kulture Konnect, a marketing design studio that focuses largely on the restaurant industry. We talk about the impact of COVID on him and his clients, the loss of purpose that came for many businesses during the pandemic, and the challenges of reinventing a company. Jorge also unpacks an important but often overlooked component of corporate websites, ADA compliance and visitor accessibility. So without further delay, here is my interview with Jorge Pacheco. Well, Jorge, welcome to the Marketing Trail Guide podcast. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much, Kevin. I really appreciate having me here, and I'm excited about the conversation.
Awesome. Well, you are, as we said in your bio, the owner of Kulture Konnect, another agency. And tell us a little bit about Kulture Konnect and, maybe get us up to the speed in terms of pre-COVID. What were you guys really focused on there?
We started Kulture Konnect in 2000, the end of 2004, beginning of 2005. It's been quite a few years that we've been in the business. The way we started Kulture Konnect was with a client in the restaurant industry. Our first client was Real Mex, owners of El Torito and El Torito Grill, Chevy's restaurants, etc. Mm-hmm. And that really get us our foot in the door because it really gave us credibility to have such a big corporation behind us in our portfolio. That opened the door for us in the restaurant industry to be able to get smaller concepts, medium concepts, and bigger concepts to work with us and trust their brand to us. Since then, it's been our main bread and butter. Restaurants is our pretty much we breathe and live restaurants, and we love working with restaurants, not only because of the food we get to taste, but also because we just love what we can do for them and what we can offer them. And we've been really lucky because most of our business with restaurants has been word of mouth, which is for me it's the best way to do business because you already come with the trust. Right. So that's pretty much been about 90% of our business over the past 15, 16 plus years, mm-hmm. Restaurant and hospitality. The other 10% has been a mix of different things. We've worked with the investment banking industry, pest control industry, self-growth, et cetera, et cetera. So it's been just a mix of different things that we've worked with. But what we were doing right before COVID-19 was that we were trying to reinvent ourselves because we, believe it or not, obviously nobody knew about COVID-19, but for one reason or another, we were ready to start reinventing ourselves and we were trying to find our persona and our personality as a business again. Mm-hmm. So that's when, right before the governor issued the quarantine order, that same week actually was when we started getting together, Nikki, my business partner, and I, to have the initial conversations to see, okay, where do we want to take Kulture Konnect besides restaurants and hospitality? Mm-hmm. What is the other opportunities that we have, and are those opportunities a different industry, or are those opportunities broader in terms of how much you can invest in your brand? And when I talk about investment, I'm not talking just about the economic investment is how important is your brand to you as a business. Because for us, we've found throughout the years very hard to work with a business that doesn't value their brand as a brand, and then we have to enter into an educational relationship that is a little bit longer to get the client or the prospect to trust what we can do for them. Whereas if there is a business that they know already that how important a brand is and how important marketing is, then that educational part becomes secondary, and then we can come in with all our tools that we have at our disposal.
Sure. So you had a little bit of a head start when COVID hit. Obviously, it's hit hospitality and food and beverage harder than any industries I can think of. Some are surviving, but you were already thinking about a pivot or a partial expansion and focus, and you've begun to kind of look at some of those other opportunities. Where do you this first season of this podcast is opportunities in crisis. One of the analogies that keeps coming up over and over is that you move the surfboard to where the break is, and if it's not breaking here anymore, you got to move. Otherwise, you're not going to catch anything. And so I know that you've identified some areas in your business, and had to at least start with the willingness to say, "Hey, are we paddling too? Are we putting too much effort into the paddle? And is there another break somewhere else where we can go paddle out to, where we're going to have more success?" And that disruption, that self-disruption, takes some initiative. So you were already there before COVID, and then I would imagine COVID accelerated it. Talk about that process and what it's been like in the last 2 to 3 months.
Well, the whole pandemic situation really, like you said, has accelerated the way we were thinking about approaching reinventing ourselves.
Yep.
I think that one of the things that we have identified that a big opportunity for us is what's going on with the increase of internet use. Mm-hmm. Everybody's way more on their devices, cell phones, tablets, desktop, etc., spending way more time on the internet. And even though over the past 2 years, we've been studying and implementing more and more accessibility tools to anything that we do online in terms of website design or email design, etc. Right now, right after the pandemic hit us, that's when we really realized how valuable that service is becoming. Okay. Because as a business owner, and if you offer something on the internet, you need to make sure that you hit everybody, right? That you hit every constituency, not just the regular people, but also the disabled. You need to make sure that it's globally, it's a $600 billion market.
$600 billion global market for disability.
In the disability market. Okay. So, and all the disabled people make that $600 billion right. Global market. So, as a business, if you don't have your website or your online documents accessible, you're missing out. Mm-hmm. This is really important especially for e-commerce websites. And e-commerce websites come in different categories. When I mention e-commerce websites to clients, they get a little scared because they think about a clothing store or Amazon or eBay. But an e-commerce website, if you are a restaurant and you sell gift cards, you have an e-commerce website.
Okay.
If you're a restaurant and you offer online ordering, you have an e-commerce website. So you need to make sure that all these different tools that you offer through your website, they are accessible. So that's one of the realizations we had as we were reinventing ourselves. We already have some of these services. How can we make an impact on other industries besides the restaurant industry?
Yeah.
And I think that's when it really hit us to realize that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We already have the foundation. We just need to make sure that everybody knows about it.
Yeah. I want to come back maybe in the second segment to drill into ADA compliance, because it's relatively new in terms of a requirement. And we can come back to that later. But for now, I'm really interested in your mental plasticity as a business owner to be able to look at the writing on the wall and have a willingness to move. I think some of that is temperament. Some of that is, and for people that have a, fact-finding temperament or a cautious temperament or a risk-averse temperament, that's a hard thing to do, to reinvent yourself and to shift. Curious, one, where are you on that temperament spectrum? Do you find that you're a quick start or that you need a lot of the facts to get moving? And then also, how did you get your head and your heart in the game to really accept this reality of, wow, we got to move and we got to move now?
Well, the we got to move and we got to move now really comes when you have a family.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
I think that's the motor of my life. And Nikki, my business partner, she's also my life partner. She's my wife. So really, Kulture Konnect is what our livelihood, basically. So we need to make sure that this works for us, right? And not only that, as a business owner, we also need to make sure that we provide, or we continue to provide work for our employees, because they also have lives, because they also have families. So we really need to make sure that this works for us. So it's not just about our kids and us as a family, but also our work environment, because we can see we're so small, we're a boutique size, that we consider our employees as our family too. I mean, we spend as much time with them as we spend with our kids. Right. So for us, it is very important to make sure that we provide for them. So that really is what motivates us to make sure that we push through. Now, in terms of how do we make the decision, I think that if I was the sole or the only owner, I think it would be a little harder for me to make a decision quicker, because I really need to have all the facts. I think a good balance comes when Nikki comes into the picture as a business owner as well, and as my partner, because she balances that part of me, and we are able to make decisions quicker and not so much waiting so much on the facts and everything needs to be perfect.
Right.
So we kind of bring half and half, and we meet in the middle, and then we make the decision. So I think that helps out a lot, because again, otherwise it would be today and we wouldn't have made any decision yet, because I'm waiting to see, have all the facts about COVID-19 and what's going to happen.
When we were talking offline and some of the discussion questions, we were, you mentioned here that, when you first were faced with this, you really wanted to kind of crawl into a hole, was sort of your way of putting it. Can you talk about How long did that process take to get out of that that mentality, and what was it that helped you do that, to shift mentally? And then what are maybe some of the disciplines, and what do you do to stay positive and stay inspired to keep moving in challenging circumstances?
I think a huge part, and this is all something that I recommend to every business owner that I meet that don't do it yet, is meditation. For me, meditation really brings me peace of mind and helps me to level myself and center myself. Um, I think otherwise I would just go crazy thinking about all the things that my mind is feeding me, because my mind is just telling me all these things that are going to happen, but not really, it's not reality. But once I sit down and meditate, I get to clear all those thoughts and push them away, and then have a little bit more clarity. And I'm not saying that I start floating on.
Right.
I just get to calm down my thoughts for a little bit, and then when they come back, I can say that's not true. We're not going to go bankrupt. We just need to figure out a way to make things work.
Yeah.
I think that what really freaked me out and made me want to crawl into a hole and never come back out was when when restaurants started closing down left and right, and without knowing when we're going to be reopened.
Right.
I think that what brought me and Nikki out was figuring out a way to help these restaurants and other businesses to also be able to get out of their own their hole, because I'm sure that a lot of them, they also just wanted to crawl into a hole and never come out.
Yeah.
So we really spent a lot of time creating a separate website, and we used the resources and our own money to advertise and all that stuff, that we used for restaurants and businesses in California, that it's like a listing directory where they could add their own business and have more exposure. We would advertise on social media. That gave us a little bit of peace of mind because it gave us a purpose. Mm-hmm. And that's where I wanted to get. When everything hit and we started losing clients left and right, we lost our purpose. We thought we had lost our purpose. Mm-hmm. And refinding that purpose put us back in the track of redefining ourselves. We were like, okay, well, should we put this aside just because we're freaking out? But no, we really need to make this work and retake it and push through.
How's that initiative going? Is it helping restaurants? It's probably, I would imagine that the problem is bigger than what the website could probably solve. But is it helping? And it sounds like it's helping you at least have that mentality.
Yeah. We continue to advertise it at one of the coolest things about the website is that it wasn't just about the business, but it was also, and specifically for restaurants, it was also for the staff members. Okay. And we created a way in which we could have users tip waitresses or waiters through the website, and so they could also get a little bit of help.
Sure.
Right? So there were at least a couple of different ways in which businesses could benefit from it, and the business could let their staff know about it, and they could also register, and the staff could benefit from it. So knowing that we were doing that really helped us gain clarity.
Yeah.
because we lost it for about 1 or 2 weeks. We just like were throwing the towel, and it didn't look pretty. But now we're back in, for the past month and a half, we're back in the game, stronger than ever. We're getting clients, which is awesome. Like now in this times, it's a little, people would tell you it's a little harder. Yes, it is, but people are also willing to continue to spend in their marketing. So it's just a matter of finding the way to market yourself to create that value for them.
Yeah. Just come back to that idea of purpose. I think this whole scenario has been a reality check for a lot of businesses who have had to figure out what is the purpose of the business. And, Simon Sinek has taught us that the purpose of your business is not just to make money, right? There's a why behind it, and redefining or rediscovering what that is, and not only what your product is, but who it's for, who you serve, and getting passionate about who that is. And so give us the name of the website so people can go and shop for some of those gift cards.
Oh yeah, it's savecaliforniabusiness.com.
savecaliforniabusiness.com. And people can go on there and buy gift cards for different restaurants?
Different restaurants, or any business that offer gift cards.
Okay.
They can register and offer or there are some businesses that don't even offer anything, any type of product or service that you can buy online. They just list their business for more exposure. Okay. That's the whole point of it. You just get more exposure for your business.
Cool. Very cool. Well, we're going to dig more into websites, speaking of websites and e-commerce, in the next segment, and we'll be right back.
From a very young age, I remember in 6th grade being taught in sex education that an abortion is just a woman's choice, and that's it. That's the only thing they teach you. It's not a baby. It's part of the woman's body, and she gets to decide whether it lives or dies. I grew up in Springfield, Massachusetts, in a very Catholic and supportive family.
My husband and I, Jerry, have 5 children. Veronica is the youngest, and I always told her, I know God has great plans for you. I had always told her that. In high school, and even junior high, she had lots of struggles with anxiety and depression and problems in school.
I would just not want to get out of bed. I had no motivation to do schoolwork or be around family or friends. I kind of secluded myself in my room. It was Christmas Day of 2018. I was 16 years old. My boyfriend was 18 at the time. We had been dating for about 4 months. I felt that something was off with me, so I looked up some symptoms online and it was matching up with pregnancy. I went to the store to get the pregnancy tests, went home, I took one, and almost immediately the second line came up, which means that you're pregnant. I was just in disbelief at first. I was like, no way, I'm not pregnant, not me. A couple hours later, I took another one and also was positive. I have a very close relationship with my mother, so I decided to tell her first. I went up to her and I showed her the tests, and she had already had a feeling that I was pregnant because I was acting differently than I usually do.
I was a little bit shocked, but I knew that I would support her. You definitely have always been pro-life, and I knew without a doubt I would never want Veronica to have an abortion.
My boyfriend told me he wanted me to have an abortion. His first reaction was just that he was very afraid. I understood where he was coming from because I was afraid as well. I knew that he wanted me to have an abortion, and I felt pressured to do so just because I didn't want to ruin his life or alter his life in a big way when it's not something that he wanted. I actually went down to Planned Parenthood. I was put in a room with this woman, and instead of her talking to me about my options or resources or different ways I could get help, it felt like she was a salesperson and she was trying to sell me on abortion. That just didn't sit right with me, and I knew that that wasn't the place I needed to be, and that's when I went home and did my own research. I searched on YouTube, what is an abortion? And I came across live actions video where the doctor describes in detail at each stage of pregnancy how the baby is killed. I just felt so upset and sad after I saw that video. I just cried. I knew if I hadn't found that video, that might have been my son who was being described in the abortion procedures, and I might have gone through with something without knowing what I was truly doing. I knew that he was a person, and that he was alive, and that killing him at any stage of life would be wrong.
The truth is powerful, and I'm so glad she came across that.
My boyfriend saw that video also, and it moved us both, and we knew that we couldn't do that. My baby was over 9 pounds, so I had to have a C-section. They brought me in, and it was about a 30-minute process. The moment I heard him cry, I was just like, I couldn't believe it, and I was so emotional because it felt like it was a blessing that he was there, and I could have almost taken his life away, and I was just so happy to hear his voice. That's a moment I'll never forget, and I just feel blessed to be his mom. I think a lot of women do choose abortion because they're afraid of the lack of support, and also I think they're just uneducated and not completely aware of what they're doing. Your pregnancy isn't just a blob of cells, it is a human being, and it deserves to live. Don't be afraid. There's so many resources out there that can help you if you are pregnant. I had my boyfriend there with me. He's been a great dad. He's really stepped up. I've been helped by people who I didn't even know existed. I'm really thankful that I found that video and that I found the resources I did and that I have my son. He really saved my life.
Well, we are back with Jorge Pacheco from Kulture Konnect, and we've been having a conversation about how, Jorge, your business has had to pivot, which has started, it started here, and it started here, and I think that there's such a human side of business, there's such a human side of interacting with different businesses that it's often easy to forget that it's not just about the transaction. There's people behind the business. And of course, our audience knows that. They're running businesses. It makes the decision to reduce headcount all the harder. That's an excruciating experience. But you had talked about something in the first segment about ADA, about American Disabilities Act compliance or accessibility. And I want to shift into talking about websites. And, you know, I think during the .com era, you know, we all figured out that, okay, a website's important. And then along came Facebook, and we realized we need to be on Facebook. And then the question is, well, what is the website about in relation to Facebook, and are they different? And maybe we could start with just your perspective on the relative importance of a website in an overall marketing strategy for a business, whether they're business to consumer, like a restaurant where there's order ahead or order pickup or whatever, or business to business, you know, attorneys and accountants and the like. What's the relative importance of websites now when you look at marketing?
Yeah, definitely. So I think that even now more than ever, the conversation about whether a website is important for a business is in the middle of the conversation of that everybody's having. The reason is because right before the pandemic, I was reading and researching a lot about specifically this, where our website's going and what's the future of websites. And a lot of experts or so-called web experts were saying that pretty soon websites were not going to be needed, because we have, like what you just mentioned, we have Facebook, we have Google, we have Exactly. And you have Google My Business, where all your business information is as well. So what I can say, and again, even more nowadays, this very moment, this present, what I predict is that websites are not gonna go away, and websites will become more important than ever, because what you know before the pandemic, it was everything on the go, and I was understanding where all these experts were going with these theories, because people would like everything quicker and faster, and they don't want to navigate a 1,000 page website. But now people have the time, as they spend more time at home, and they've realized that it's not so bad to just take things a little easier, and stop for a moment and smell the roses.
So you think people are spending more time on page?
I think so. I think that people are spending more time on specific pages. Obviously, there are some pages that people are not historically, and they will not continue to spend more time on those, like about us pages. So all those pages are more for SEO type of things than anything else. But there are some other pages and entry pages and exit pages that are very important. And when we talk about websites, we need to understand that a website is not just something that you build and leave it.
Okay.
You need to, as a business owner and as a marketer, you need to understand that a website is something that needs to be used as a sales tool. Whether it is an informational website or a catalog website, or an e-commerce or online ordering, whatever it is a sales tool. You need to make sure that you understand it that way. And when I say that is because many times we get approached by prospects or current clients that want to revamp their website, and they say, design and program this. Yes, we can design and we can program it, but what's the benefit of just designing and program it and launch it if you're not going to do anything with it? You need to make sure that you have a strategy, a sales strategy with it. And with that comes a lot of different things. It comes your content strategy, it comes your SEO strategy, your funnel strategy, your email strategy, your social media strategy. It's right. So everything kind of like goes together in a whole package with your website, because otherwise it's just going to be one more website up on the cyberspace. Yeah. And it doesn't make sense to do that.
And I think setting that expectation, that's right. Well, so yeah, to your point, I think setting the expectation about what this thing will do. You talked about this comprehensive approach, and a lot of times business owners are concerned about the cost of that, as they should be. And what I found is it's really helpful to paint the big picture and give people an understanding of where a website fits into the overall strategy, but then to understand that, okay, you have, X amount of dollars to go build this function or this aspect of the big picture, but have a proper expectation for what that alone will do. If there's not traffic coming to your website, nobody's going to see it. And so, it's not really going to be as helpful as if you've considered your traffic strategy. You mentioned SEO or organic. There's paid traffic. There's different ways to get traffic to your website. So what I hear you saying is it's still relevant. It may be more relevant than ever. Earlier in our conversation, we talked about accessibility. And this is something that is relatively new, and another way of describing it is ADA, or American Disabilities Association compliance. So what is the legislation that's come down in California and other places that this has even become such an important topic of discussion? You mentioned the opportunity, but there's also a legality to it as well.
Definitely. It's such a controversial topic, Kevin, because there is no specific law that demands and makes you as a business owner to have a website that's accessible. Now, the caveat here, or the trick here, is that even though there is no law, the DOJ and the Senate has left it up to each individual judge and each individual circumstance to decide whether, if you get served, whether you have to or not make your website accessible.
So walk me through the path there. If you get served by whom?
And this is, unfortunately, this is such muddy waters as well, because you would think that you would get sued by a person that's disabled, right? And in many cases that happens,
right?
But it is an unfortunate thing because a lot of law firms have created complete teams to farm websites that are not accessible, and they start suing these businesses. And what they normally do is that they pick out the small businesses, because small businesses will normally tend to settle. So it's an easy $4,000 or $5,000 each time for them. Wow. So if they farm 20, 40 websites a month, and they settle half of it, that's a pretty money there.
So if they're winning lawsuits or if they're threatening lawsuits, and they're on that basis, or they have a case, and on that basis are getting settlements, there must be some legislation or some case law that serves as their basis. And so are there parameters for certain types of companies that need to be ADA compliant? And then maybe what does ADA compliance even mean as it pertains to a website? Like what's the user experience like for a ADA compliant website versus a non-compliant website?
Exactly. So that's a good question. So let me answer this in different parts. So the first part of your first answer of your question is there is something that's called the WCAG guidelines, and with what the WCAG guidelines tells you as a programmer is how or what type of things you need to have in mind when you are programming your website to make sure that specific and certain parts of that website create the specific experience for the disabled. In terms of in terms of functionalities, a accessible website might have less use like this great user experience, because there will be less things flying in and out and all this shiny stuff and things moving, because the disabled won't be able to experience that. So that puts a constraint on the designer and the programmer and the business owner that wants to have all these different things, shiny things,
Okay.
that a regular
pop-ups or dynamic content, interactive content, something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's one thing, that a good thing to have in mind. The WCAG 2.1 guidelines, that's what really you should pay attention to, and it's a pretty long document, but if you have a really good programmer, they should be able to discern all that. Now, in terms of the legal and economic part of it, yes, there are some parameters in which you pay per violation. If you get served and you go to court, you would have to pay per violation. So, for example, a page might have 1 violation, or a page might have 10 violations, or 50 violations.
Okay.
It all depends. And here in California, it's up to, I believe it's up to $500 per violation.
Okay.
Now, also here in California, it's up to $75,000 as a whole in terms of violations. So it doesn't matter if your website has 1,000 violations.
Right.
You
There's a
pay
cap
up
on it.
to $75,000.
Right.
Now,
Not something any of us want to pay.
yes. Now, as a business, and this is where our logic comes into play. As a business, you really have to weigh what you want to do. Do you want to wait for, to get served? Then you have to pay for either settlement, or if you want to go to court, pay, for whatever the judge ends up saying. Plus, you're going to have to anyways fix your website and pay legal fees and so on and so on. Or just pay, however much fixing your current website, or have a brand new ADA compliant website is going to cost you. So as a business owner, that's where you need to put those things in the balance and figure out what you need to what you want to do.
Sure. So I get.
Go ahead.
Oh, finish your thought. Go ahead.
I was going to say that, and this is something that I really push to our customers, is that you need to be careful with how you view your business, because one thing is what you want to do with your business. A different thing is what you need to do with your business.
Right.
So what is it? Is it what you want, or is it what you need?
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, people look at compliance differently, and there's obviously different compliance standards. What's so interesting about this one is it's not industry specific. It's anybody with a website, right? So we're used to SOX like Sarbanes-Oxley, or, GLBA or HIPAA, or all these compliance standards that are industry specific. But this one cuts across every vertical. So it's very pervasive. And I don't personally hear about a lot of lawsuits, but as with any compliance requirement, usually the law is passed, or the guidance is released, and sometimes there's not teeth in it for a while, but then there's kind of the slow roll of lawsuits that ramp up and ramp up and ramp up. And sometimes companies don't even know about it until they get it by surprise, which is a bad surprise. We don't want those kinds of surprises. So that's really, really valuable information. So let me just
add something really quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Kevin, and this is why we really want to create that urgency for businesses, because at the beginning of 2009, and this is at the federal level, not at the state level. At the federal level, we were seeing at least one lawsuit filed every hour.
Whoa.
So just imagine that, and that's only at the federal level.
Right.
That's not counting the state or the county level.
Right.
So imagine that, that translates to over 2,000 a year, only at the federal level.
Wow.
So I think that the benefit of really rethinking your website to make it accessible,
yeah,
whether it is you keep your current website and make that one accessible, or you redo your website as an ADA compliant website, I think that outweighs the risk of being served.
Sure. And certainly gives you more peace of mind, not worrying about it, call it insurance or whatever. And there's different approaches to solving for this. I've seen, if you've got a WordPress site, I've seen simple plugins that can install and kind of handle some of this for you. And it doesn't always necessarily mean a complete teardown from a code standpoint.
Yeah, and one of the things, and that's also something that I want to make clear, and I like to make clear with prospects and clients, is that yes, these plugins work well as a Band-Aid, but they are just a Band-Aid. You really need, if you truly want your website ADA compliant, you need to go back to the code and fix your code. Yes, this front end, because they're only front end, meaning what you see on your desktop as the user. Plugins, I mean, they're amazing and they do the job they're meant to do, but at the end of the day, is you're just prolonging a little bit more, that possibility of risk.
Yeah, and it, this gets into the psychological game of, the thief, when he sees the club on the steering wheel of the car, he decides not to steal that one, even though he could in about 5 minutes, because the one next to it doesn't have the club, right? And so it becomes the game of just making it a little bit harder to be sued. You don't have to be bulletproof, to play the game. But there's definitely a reasonable amount of effort that needs to be put into place. And I certainly don't want to throw my lawyer friends under the bus, but I was surprised and intrigued to learn that there are investment products that are essentially based on, I may butcher how I'm describing this, forgive me, attorneys, but based on a whole lawsuit farming, and there's equity products that are out there that you can buy that are based on the awards that these attorneys are winning. I don't think in ADA compliance yet, but in pharmaceutical patent lawsuits. So that whole segment of the economy exists where I can invest, $100,000, $500,000, whatever it is, and I'm going to get a return on investment because their private equity pool of lawsuits will give me a return, and those products exist now. And so I don't know if ADA is that's coming down for ADA, but
I don't know. Well, I was really surprised with all this ADA compliance stuff, because as we talk to clients, they normally agree on one comment, and it is, we were already over our heads with the regular ADA compliant, like physical ADA compliant, right, and now we have to worry about this.
Yeah. It's tough, and I wonder if some states are tougher than others. I know that the business environment in California is getting harder on different fronts, but yet another thing to be aware of.
California is definitely leading in, at least up to March. It was leading the lawsuits up for ADA compliant.
The Golden State. There's gold in them hills, isn't there? Yeah.
So the three top is California, New York, and Florida. Okay. Those are the three up.
A lot of money in those states. Yeah, for sure. Well, Jorge, we're gonna wrap up here, but I want to ask you to leave our listeners with just your kind of parting advice for business owners that are facing decisions about how they're going to pivot, how they're going to keep their head above water. You're in that pivot. You've identified some areas and shared on this call, on this episode, how you're thriving and how you see your opportunity in the future in the middle of this crisis. What advice would you give other business owners who are needing to do the same?
I firmly believe that putting or creating the value around your brand is one of the most effective ways to attract your current and new audiences. With that said, many or most businesses, when there is a crisis, what they tend to do first is cut off any and all marketing budgets. And I see that as a mistake. And the reason is because once you cut off your marketing budgets, then you're cutting off the lifeline of your business, because marketing is the best way to maintain contact and reaching out for your constituencies. This, and this is something that, when we were, Nikki and I were discussing what the next best step was going to be, or is going to be. What I was saying is, if we cut any type of marketing effort that we do with Kulture Konnect, what's going to happen is that we're just going to go down back to work as freelancers. Mm-hmm. And we don't want to be freelancers. We want to be a business. Right. We want to be a business that provides value to our clients, and we want to be a business that provides work for our employees. So if you're a business owner, don't fall into the trap of staying hidden in that cave. Nobody's telling you don't go into that cave. You have all your right. You're stay there for as long as you need to, but then you need to make sure that you wake up and come out of the darkness. And just putting it in the words that I tell my kids when they get mad and they just retract to themselves. Just think about it as if you were a turtle. If you're a turtle, you go into the shell, and that's how you protect yourself. You will tend to do the same thing for your business. You will try to protect your business. What you're trying to do is go into that shell. But it is up to you how long you stay here. It is up to you how long it takes you to get up again and start running. And it doesn't have to be a sprint. You just start running.
There you go. That's good stuff, Jorge. Appreciate that. And it's always good to talk shop a little bit. And hopefully it's been helpful for our listeners to have a perspective on marketing and how to be more intelligent, educated buyers. Because a lot of times in a technical field like this, it's hard to make good buying and hiring decisions when you're not educated. And so my hope is that this will help our audience in that way. So Jorge Pacheco, Kulture Konnect, thank you so much for joining me today, and really appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Marketing Trail Guide podcast. Next time, I'll be talking with Katie Rucker, co-owner and president of McKinsey Corporation, about how companies can use data insights and analytics to drive better customer experiences. If you found this episode valuable, please give us a 5-star review and hit the subscribe button for more on how to find and benefit from opportunities in crisis. You can find the notes for this week's episode, plus all of our existing episodes and much more content at marketingtrailguide.com.